Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this info session for the Master of Global Affairs program today. I see a thumb up. That's great. My name is Iris Ma. I am Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs in the Keough School of Global Affairs at the University of Notre Dame. It's my great pleasure today to conduct this info session and introduce you to a wide range of topics related to the Master of Global Affairs program, but also any questions that you are interested and would like us to answer. Okay, so I prepared some slides so that it's easier for you to follow me here. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Great.
Looks good.
Wonderful. Okay, so we conducted an info session a month ago. I know that some of you probably didn't have time to join us. Don't worry, I put together the review of the first info session so that you can catch up. And in the first info session, I talk about, the broad information about the Keough School, the Master of Global Affairs program, paying some special attention to the curriculum, courses, including core required and also elective, but also practicum, the field experience. Those information is available online. So anytime you can check it out. But here, I think it'll be very useful for you to know what Keough School is and who you're going to study together and work together, because this is the academic program. So looking at this image on the right, this is the beautiful building of the Keough School of Global Affairs. This is a place that we think, really four important takeaways for you. One is we are interdisciplinary, integrative, and human-centered approach. You will say, what does it mean? This is an interconnected world, increasingly so. So when you are talking about global affairs, any particular issues or topic, it requires multiple perspective, requires, multiple aspect dimensions. When you're interested, say, for example, global health issues, you probably want to know not just about the economic aspect, but also local perspective and global scale, and also political, underlining issues and all those. So this is why we have all kinds of faculty members, trained scholars, but also policymakers and practitioners who can teach you, especially to bridge classroom learning and field experience and take a human-centered approach. We, of course, very much focus on, effectiveness of policymaking and practice, but most importantly, we examine how the impact of policies and decision-making on local communities and individuals. That is our human-centered approach. And as a professional program, we also have lots of resources available here to provide to our students to develop your career trajectory. This is a professional program. After 2 years, after taking classes, building relationships, and getting involved in different resources, I believe you would like to advance your career. And this is the place that to support you, to help you, to make it possible for you to achieve that goal. As students, at least when I was a graduate student, I always look at the pictures and bios of professors, because they are the ones who are top minds in their fields, who will teach me knowledge, skills, and competencies that enable me to advance my career. These three faces you're looking are just a very, minority numbers of faculty I selected. And I really encourage you to take a look at the faculty webpage in the Keough School of Global Affairs to see the wide range of topics that our faculty members are engaging in. So, for example, Professor Paul Winters, he's an endowed chair professor in the Keough School, and he is a trained economist with the expertise on rural poverty, food security, and small-scale agriculture. Professor Paul Winters, like many other faculty members in the Keough School, has double identities. On one hand, he's a professor in the classroom setting. He's a trained economist, as I said. but also he spent years working at UN, at the subcommittee supporting local agricultural projects and the sustainable development goals. And that's the other identity he has. He's a practitioner. So in his classes, he brings in rich academic rigor, but also practical experience. And in the middle, you see Professor Abby Cordova. And Professor Cordova comes from Latin America. She focuses on Latin America politics, political behavior, and she has been the lead researcher at USAID for years. And the other side, on the right is Professor Alice Adams. If you're interested in topics such as environmental policy, especially with a focus on water, sanitation, hygiene. This is what WASH, WASH stands for. And that he definitely is the right person for you to come and study with. And he also provides consulting services to World Bank and many other international organizations. And you can imagine his research also covers all kinds of regions, not just in Africa or Ghana, where he comes from, but also South Bend local community. That's how we connect local and global. So in addition to all this, just about how to be a student, what kind of intellectual community we are here, I think you probably will be very interested in, the curriculum, the program, student body, who will become your next classmate sitting next to you in that classroom. I want you to say, from this picture, you probably can see that we are a very diverse community. Nearly 60 countries are presented here. Students come from all over the world. I would say most of the students, 65% student each cohort actually are international students. Many times when I met with students, I always heard comments like, this is such a diverse, rich place. I learned not only from my professors, but also from my classmates, because some of them might have just been in the field 2 months before they join the program. They have years of experience. They understand lots of hands-on, issues and kind of nuances. But in the classroom setting, they are able to bring that into the discussion about academic engagement, about intellectual, community. So it's a great place to come. And we have 3 different concentrations of the information available on our website under curriculum. We have governance and policy, international peace studies, and sustainable development. So I would say typical trajectory of your 2 years here, if you decide to join us, will be you are gonna first year, I would say primarily foundational classes, core required classes. Those will help you to lay very solid groundwork for your careers, for your skill sets. And after that first year, in the first summer, you will go to the field, either to, within the country or to different places of your interest or where your group project will be. Stay there for iLab, integration lab, especially for students in the governance and policy and sustainable development concentrations. Students will spend ranging from 8 to 10 weeks that summer in the field, working with a global partner. For peace study students, they will go to the field in the first summer, but also including the second fall semester, altogether 6 months in the field to understand the nuances, the complexity of issues, so that before they come back to complete their courses and degree. So the second year is the time when you take all kinds of electives, because by the time you finish your field experience, you have not only foundational understandings, framework, theoretical engagement, you also understand what are the issues in the field. You probably will see better the gaps in your knowledge structure. I often say to my students, it's like building a house. You lay the groundwork, foundation, solid, and then you build, the walls and different windows, different structures, different spaces. In the end, you want the house to be functional, to be effective. Then you need to find the gaps and fill in with solid material. So that is the second year with different kinds of electives you see that you need in order to advance your career. And that's how you get all things done before you move on from the program. So these are the overview. So for today, I will continue to talk about the Master of Global Affairs program. And I think I probably forgot to mention that today it also is a great pleasure to have one of my colleague, our current student, Christopher Jordan, to join me to share with you his own personal experience in the program. And so in addition to that, I would like to focus more on two topics. One is about professional development. The other is about financial support. This is a professional program. Ultimately, you would like to leave the program with a lot more understandings, knowledges, skill sets as well, and networking as well, right? And then you can bring yourself up to another level. So what kind of resources available here? And what other things that you can do? You can picture yourself in the community we have. So as I mentioned, very closely tied to this topic is the practicum field experience. Integration lab with working on the team-based project, probably 3 to 5 students each team working with a global partner on one particular issues or topics. And I know that Chris will talk more about his iLab field experience that he conducted this past summer with iLab and with the global partner. And also, as I mentioned, 6-month-long peace study field experience and how this could translate into not just skills, but also potential jobs as well. And because of the limited time we have here, I cannot tell you everything or every fantastic stories that our students have, but I encourage you to explore the website on the Keough Insider blog. You type in that Keough Insider blog, you will see lots of stories that students have been writing while they are in the field, their reflection, their experience, their thoughts in terms of how to connect classroom learning with real life experience, but also how to really use what we learn to change, to make small or bigger changes so that we have a better world to live. And, some students also say, hey, you're in South Bend, you are in the Midwest. So how can I, really engage with the policy world if I'm really interested in that topic? I said, don't worry, we have an office in DC, and we also have all kinds of opportunities connecting with DC, especially this DC immersion trip. So every fall semester or spring semester, depending on students' schedule and also events in the DC office, we have this DC immersion class offered by the Keough School Master's Program, provide funding. Students' trip is covered, send students to DC, especially during spring break or fall break, so that when students come back, for example, current second year students, as I said, this past summer, they were in the field. And then this fall, have been taking all kinds of elective classes, which basically help them to consolidate their field experience and learning. And in the spring semester, this DC immersion class will be offered that enable students to take the trip, take reading different class assignments, but also they will take the trip during spring break to DC, have all kinds of either group meetings or individual meetings arranged for them or by them or with them to meet with different policymakers, bureaus, units or departments at Hill through our DC office, so they can pitch to policymakers or their future employers their project, their policy recommendation, make network, build relationship to advance their career. In addition to that, we also have a dedicated staff member who is Associate Director of Professional Development and Alumni Relations. Check it out. Her bio is on the website. We have a career colloquium every semester to teach students how to do your resume, how to write your cover letter that is compelling, effective, how to tell your story, how to present your work in a public setting, how to conduct public speaking, and all kinds of skill sets. We also invite alumni, people in the State Department or people in Ghana working on water issue, or people who have been the head of a NGO to talk about from employers' perspective what they are looking for, what kind of employees they would like to hire. And we also have Chicago Track. You probably know that South Bend, where we are located, is close to Chicago. So there are lots of resources there, think tanks there, organizations there. So we will take students there. That's the plan for the spring semester, this coming spring. And we also have professional development fund to support student trip, for example, to a conference presentation. And we also have language fund to support students' language learning, either your second language, or if there's a third language you would like to do, you can, that will help your professional development. That is also possible. And we also, 2 years ago, we launched the Keough Career Launch Fellowship. That basically is the fellowship we provide to our graduating master students who are launching on their career. For example, you have to relocate, transportation, and moving fee, all those. So we are doing our very best to provide support to our students so that they can advance in their career trajectory. In addition to these resources available within the master's program, but also in the school, and there are also resources available on campus. For example, Notre Dame has a marvelous Center for Career Development. There's one particular suite dedicated to graduate students, both master and PhD students. We also have a colleague working there closely with our master students on various issues. We also have graduate school provide support. For example, if you're interested in, say, grant application, either grant, for your graduate studies or for your career development, we also have colleagues who are very experienced and can teach you, can help you to polish your statement, teach you how to pitch your own statement and engage with your potential audience. And don't forget, Notre Dame also has a very strong alumni network. We have Handshake on campus. That is the Notre Dame version of LinkedIn. So you will be connected with a wide range of alumni who are located in all over the world, all kinds of industries, really make it possible to open up a new window, or even a door for you to engage with your own career trajectory. So you probably are interested in what kind of jobs our students were able to land on. So I will say this is the pie chart. You can see that these past three cohorts, every cohort after they graduated, according to the common practice in the field, we conducted a survey. Within 6 months after they graduated, we send them a survey, ask them, hey, how are you doing? Where are you working? What kind of position are you holding? Anything you can share with us. So the data we collected demonstrates that employment rate of the past three cohorts has been really, really high, 95%, 94%, and this most recent, 100%. Student basically, that I would say, including students who are employed by organization, or they find further studies. They go to PhD program, although that is still minorities, very extreme minority, because this is a professional program. This is a terminal degree. And we really strongly encourage our students to consider their professional development in terms of how to advance career by landing on different kinds of jobs. So you can also see that almost 80% of them stayed in the US. Among those students, 60% were international students. As I said, we have 65% of students who are international students. The top three industries or type of jobs is first, non-governmental organizations. I think probably because, our students are all coming in with this notion that, yes, I want to advance my career. Yes, I want to have a better paid job. Yes, I want to do more. I want to become more capable. But deep in their heart, either explicitly or implicitly, they always think that I would like to use what I'm learning to make changes. So NGO has been a very attractive place for them to go. But you can also see in this pie chart, even within NGOs, there are different kinds of organizations. And we also have students who enter the public sector, government, or state, local places, or they enter private sector, for example, consulting firms, or places like that. And these are the just, positions held by recent graduates. as I mentioned, including public sector, this very first one, Presidential Management Fellow, it's a very prestigious fellowship, which translates to definitely a position in the government, in the US government. So we've had, I would say, more than a handful of students in the just past 2 years, graduate from our program who was selected to do this very prestigious fellowship. We also have US Policy Coordinator Program Officer, we have Research Associate, we have Analyst, we have fellows in different places. You can see this is another picture of our student who were graduating that day. Excitement, smiling faces. It's really phenomenal to see that. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to share with you 2 stories to demonstrate, how our program curriculum, especially courses and practicum, and also resources available, enabled our students to land on their career. So the first one you can see, this is Derek Lee. He's Asian American. I believe he originally comes from Taiwan, but also spent lots of time in America, but also Asia before he joined the program. He's very interested in sustainable development topics, and he actually was a student in that concentration. When he was admitted, he was a recipient of a Don Marlin Keough Fellowship, and you can see that we have a long list of fellowships available. That's another topic I'm going to talk about. And when he graduated, he received the Keough Career Launch Fellowship, which allowed him to relocate in New York City in that Mennonite Central Committee. And it was his internship actually in that committee for 6 months. Later was able to translate into a long-term position in UN, a subcommittee right now. We have a story about him on our website. So he shared with us that that Career Launch Fellowship was so useful, enabled him to move to New York City from South Bend, which, basically the location is very close to UN subcommittee. And he was able to network with people there to demonstrate the work he has done, including those before he joined the program, but especially those when he was in our program. Later, that was able to, translate into his current job. And we are very proud of Derek and the work he has been doing. And the other is another student who graduated in 2021. And she, Guzan initially comes from Central Asia. And you can see that she also received a generous fellowship when she joined the program. She focused on peace studies. And she conducted 6-month field experience with Catholic Relief Services, CRS. Her work was so good that when she graduated, CRS decided to hire her. So now she's a technical associate with the CRS program in justice and peace building. And he told us many times how grateful she is for all these, experiences, but also resources and support we provide in the program. Check out more stories on the website, webpage, recent employment outcomes. You probably also are very curious about financial situation here. I was too when I was a student applying, to different graduate programs. I wanted to just, also have a page here just to talk through this process. Remember, application is due on December 15th. Don't forget to send in your application, complete application. And after that, you can celebrate, the end of the year, the arrival of the new year. But on our end, our busy work and life just started. You can imagine right after New Year, actually even before before December ends, committees, subcommittees will meet and talk through different processes and timeline. And in January, once the new semester starts, subcommittees will meet, subcommittees based on concentrations. Then committee members will talk through, review applications, talk through different applications, have back and forth meetings from January until February. That's the time when committee members are talking. And also, after that, we also have another committee talking about financial aid. Excuse me. So throughout this process, you probably would think, excuse me, how does this, black box work? Committee meeting, what kind of topics they are talking, they focus on. That is related to the second bullet point criteria. Of course, we'll look at your academic achievements, your transcript, your different information available related to your intellectual academic credential. But equally important is your professional experience, is what you have done in the field, in your current job, and what you plan to do moving forward. And in that line, how you see our program actually would able to help you to advance that trajectory. And we also will look at other information you provide in your statement, in your short essay, and also information provided by your recommendation letter writers. So I would say our approach is very much holistic. We're looking at you as a whole person. We're looking at where you come from, what you have been doing up to this point, your career development, and we also look at the different experience and capabilities that will enable you to succeed here, because we would very much like to see you succeed in our program. And through that long, really very intense review process, in the end, in early March, that is the goal for our program, to send out our preliminary offer letters to students, so that we can start to think about, hey, great, I got into the master's program, MGA, am I go? Think about it. And you know that you have until April 15 to make the decision. Of course, if you know this is the place you would like to come, I hope you think so, then you can write back to us right away after you receive the email and say, you know what, yes, I want to be part of the master's program. That would be great. And students are always very interested in all kinds of financial support. I was too, as I mentioned. So I want you to reassure you that all our applicants are considered full or partial tuition scholarship and living stipend. So you don't need to have a separate application for funding. No, you just send in one application package under the graduate school. And I also would like to say that 100% of students, as I said, when you go to the field with iLab, or when you go to the field with peace studies, you receive 100% funding to cover your field experience. And I would say also at least 75% of our students receive significant support. What does it mean, significant? It is a tiered system. We because we have limited resources, I think you probably would understand and appreciate that the tier system is the best student will give them a full ride that covers everything. And then the student on the second rank, the student will also receive probably the cover full tuition, probably most of the living stipend. And then you can see that moving down. So that's why I would strongly suggest that you spend time and effort to work on your application, to bring together, your statement to basically into a compelling and effective statement to let us know who you are, why you would like to join us, why MGA program is so important to you, and how we can help you to advance your career. This is a partnership. We see you as our valuable partner. We want to help you, to support you, and you see us also as a partner who will be able to advance your career. So the last thing I would like to mention before I turn it over to Chris is that we have 9 institutes and centers in the Keough School. Look at this. Every one of them provides different kinds of resources, ranging from funding, that is the easier thing to understand, but also opportunities, research assistant or research associate or internship or office worker, different kinds, and also how they also work with each other. Sometimes one student goes into one institute or center and start to connect with another. That's how eventually they are able to take away rich resources, not just about funding, but also relationships they build here with our colleagues. Okay, now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, our current student, Christopher Jordan.
Thank you, Iris. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Hello, like Iris said, my name is Christopher Jordan. I'm a current student here at Notre Dame. In my second year, I'm in the governance and policy concentration. So really happy to share with you all about my experience so far in the program. I hope it answers many of your questions, and I hope that it brings up new questions that we can address during the Q&A or after, if you have an email that you can send to the Keough admissions email. So just a really quick background about myself and why I chose Keough. I'm from Chicago originally. I actually studied my undergrad here in Indiana about 6 years ago. And then after that, most of my experience has been in government jobs on different levels. In college, I had a chance to intern at the state level. After graduating, I worked for a congressional office back in my hometown. And then the job I had right before coming to the Keough School was working for a foreign consulate in Chicago. So for me, coming to grad school is really a consideration of how do I get skills that are necessary to get the jobs that I want, right? I'm sure as you're all discerning whether graduate school is right for you and which grad school is going to help you meet your professional goals, you're also looking at those jobs and those applications online and seeing all the kind of daunting list of requirements, and many of them you will see master's degree is required. So that was one of my motivations, as well as needing more training in data analysis on the quantitative and qualitative level, which I'll get in more to that when I speak about iLab, but that was training that I received from the iLab, as well as the foundational courses during the first semester here in macro and microeconomics, as well as a class called policy evaluation, which is basically a sort of introduction to econometrics. So when you read policy papers, you actually know, okay, here's the cause and effect. I can read this, and I'm ready now to understand on an intuitive level how to go into maybe someone's office or to a stakeholder or to a client and explain to them, here's why this policy works, here's how it's effective, et cetera. I wanted to highlight some of the electives that I've taken that I feel like might be of interest to some of you. So as you can see here, one of them was China and the Global South that I took last year. I wanted to highlight this class because as a student, you do take a global politics requirement. And for me, it was really interesting to take a course on an area that I hadn't really covered or known much about. I had lived in Taiwan for a little bit after college, so I was interested in learning more about China. And of course, this is a class that covers a lot about foreign policy, international relations. But I highlight the class as well because half of the students in that class were law students at Notre Dame. So when you're taking electives, you can really be mindful and consider in terms of connecting with students outside of the MGA program, looking at other departments. Of course, the MGA electives are all incredible, but it's nice to get other perspectives as well across campus. And I think that's a big advantage of Notre Dame is the community really allows you to network across schools and departments. Another class was cities and states and global governance. So of course, this is a global affairs program, but as you learn through your experience when you come here, the global governance means so much more than just the nation state actors. So this was a course that really focused on localities and how they're responding and adapting to these really complex global challenges. The last course I want to highlight is comparative authoritarianism. I took it because of my interest in democracy promotion, and that's the field that I hope to go into after graduating from Keough. But this was a class that is half MGA students and half PhD students in the political science department. So if you are considering further education beyond the professional program, like Iris said, this is a terminal degree. But if you are considering it, you can take classes that are cross-listed with PhD professors to get that experience and work on research and create. You'll come away with a substantial paper at the end of these seminar classes usually. I've got the chance to work on campus. Some of you I've connected with already as I'm working with the admissions office at the moment. In the past, I've worked with the Pulte Institute for Global Development. I worked with them exploring migration in Central America in Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala. The research question was really looking at drivers of migration, but also what are the conditions that create rootedness in communities and then how do you encourage those? So migration is not my area of concentration, but as someone who is learning Spanish and wanted to read more primary source material in Spanish, this was a great opportunity to work part-time on the side in addition to my studies. But the experience I really want to highlight for all of you is the iLab, which for me was probably the biggest draw of why I came to Notre Dame. Iris, if you could change to the next slide, please. I have some pictures that you all can see here. That's great. Yeah, so Iris touched on it earlier already, but the iLab is this. It's sort of it's a year-long program where you are consulting for an international organization, and you're doing it alongside your classmates. So in the middle picture, you can see my teammates, Nicoletta, Jody, and Rafa. They're also second-year students between the Sustainable Development concentration and the Governance and Policy track. So in January of this year, we partnered with an organization called National League of Cities, which is based in Washington, D.C. And they are an advocacy and membership-based organization that basically they bring together information and resources to share with mayors and city leaders all across the United States. So they came to us and said, we're really interested in innovation in cities around the world. And can you guys look at some different models of innovation, projects, strategies? What are cities doing to become more innovative? And how can we translate those into really tangible recommendations to give to mayors in the United States, particularly in these small and medium-sized cities that don't have much staffing capacity, but can use innovative tools and processes to become more efficient, to look at problems like sustainability and resilience in different ways, to use data to drive decision-making, things like that. So the picture on the left here is from, and on the right, this is from our summer field experience. So, after in the spring semester, we got to design a research methodology and do all this desk review and really dig into the literature. We created a plan for 8 weeks of the summer to go out into the field and then talk with experts and answer the research question that we had. We spoke with over 70 experts in the field. They were city leaders and mayors, university professors, experts, civil society, members of the public and residents. So this was, as you imagine, incredibly exciting. We were traveling across Europe and North America, and really it allowed us to gain all these incredible insights. So when we came back from our summer fieldwork this past semester, we've been looking at the data, going through the interviews, and creating a deliverable. So the point of iLab is, you're getting all this training, but you're also getting direct insight into what it's like to work with an international organization on a really complex issue, and then have a deliverable, a tangible work product at the end of it that then you can show prospective employers, here's exactly what I did, and here's the product, and I can show you. So we've had the chance to create this guidebook that will be published in January to thousands of city leaders across the United States. And in fact, really excited that later today I'll be traveling to a conference where we're actually presenting these findings to leaders in person. So it's just been this incredible opportunity to not only have all the theoretical training and the behind the scenes, and really grappling with how to analyze data, how to create a methodology, and how to do research, but then also how do I communicate these findings to the people that are actually making decisions? So we'll get a chance to do that, this weekend at this conference. And of course, that's all through Notre Dame, that they're supporting us financially to travel to the conference. And so we're all really grateful. And so I wonder, I'm happy to answer any questions. I wonder what questions you have after all that. I hope that it excites you and piques your interest in the program. And I'll hand it back over to Iris now to close out. But happy to answer your questions. Oh, Iris, I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I was really excited. I wanted to say that this is great that we have Chris to share with you his own personal experience. And we're also very grateful that Chris is able to take this time to join me today, especially right before his trip to his conference. Great. We're so proud of him. And so I guess we will stop here. Just remember the deadline is December 15th. So get your application ready and submit it before the deadline. If you have any questions, send your inquiries to this Keough admissions@nd.edu email account. We'll respond to you as soon as we can. Now I will stop sharing the slides and we'll open up for questions. All right. So the first question here we have is, can you talk about the differences between the 3 different tracks within global affairs? Yes, we have 3 concentrations. As I mentioned, sustainable development, governance and policy that Chris is currently in, and also peace studies. So peace studies, from the name, you can imagine, peace studies to teach students how to build peace strategically. So the core concept is strategic peace building. And it's about student will take different classes, core required, and also go into the field for 6 months. And for governance and policy, it really focuses on institutions and actors in governance, as Chris mentioned, different levels. And you also need to learn, especially in the political, but also other aspects as well, cultural and, diplomatic and all those. And for sustainable development, in addition to typical topics related to sustainable development, for example, food production and security and weather change, climate policy, and environmental policy, all those. Also, I would say sustainable development also has a quite strong quantitative orientation. Students take all kinds of classes to basically develop and polish that kind of skill sets. So they also probably will lead to different kinds of jobs. For example, peace study probably go to more about non-governmental organization working with different communities and focusing on the issue of peace, conflict. And for governance and policy, as Chris well said, demonstrated, probably is more about governance, different kinds of governmental units and organizations, international organizations. And for sustainable development, also has very strong research skills and analysis and all those. So, okay, now the second question actually is for Chris. What has been the greatest personal and professional lesson you've learned from your time in the MGA program?
Oh, yeah, that is a great question. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I don't think it's a new lesson, but a lesson that I've learned more deeply, or yeah, I think just it's about personal relationships and people, and about how like networking is obviously very important for your career and your job, but I feel like the lesson I've really learned is just how to really make meaningful relationships with colleagues, classmates, professors, and how to make your career more about how to make real impact happen. And to do that, you need to not just be stuck in an office, but you need to be out and talking with people and gaining new experiences and new perspectives, so that when you're in a position of authority or power, or you're writing policy, you know directly who it's for. And so, as Iris touched on earlier in the presentation, we have this incredible group of students here that come from all over the world, and I really feel like I wouldn't have had that experience at any other program. Even though this is Indiana, I just feel like the resources and the distinctive approach of Notre Dame brought all these perspectives here. And so I think that is what's really important, is that at the end of the day, we try to make all this impact and do all this work because people matter. And as Keough, the distinctive nature of it is IHG, the integral human development. It's about making and designing projects and making policy for the whole person and for every person. So I think that's why I came to the program, and it's a lesson that has really been instilled in me even more so in my year and a half here so far.
Well said. Thank you so much, Chris. I also see another question. How many students do you admit for each class? So typically, we admit about 15 students in each concentration. So the cohort is about 45 students, including both international and domestic students. And the fourth question, I think I have more or less addressed that. When do you send admissions decisions? I would say usually we start in early March, typically the first week of March. That is the time when we start the process, because it's a long decision-making process. So it's very likely that we'll send out a batch of decision letters first, and then probably another second week we'll send another group, so that student will get our decision as soon as they can, so you can have informed decision making for yourself. And there's another question: is there a possibility of receiving an application fee waiver? Yes. I believe we have a code that you could type in your application form. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, we have a link to a fee waiver application that we can send and follow up with. And then if it's approved, yes, you would receive a code and you put that in the application. When you apply, then the application fee would be waived. That's right.
Thank you, Chris. There's also another question. Is it okay if my recommendation letters are from professional references and not university professors? So I would say, I would suggest that if it's possible, that you find at least one letter writer who is currently an academic, because this is an academic program. So it's very important for us to know that you will be able to succeed in your coursework. On one hand, yes, we definitely would love to read those letters written by professionals, especially your supervisor or your co-workers. But on the other hand, I would think that letters written by your former, past professors or your current, professors you have connection with, that will be great. There's another question: do Peace Study students participate in the iLab and a 6-month practicum, or just the practicum? That's a great question. So Peace Study students only participate in the 6-month long practicum. That is for Peace Study students only. For students in the other 2 concentrations, such as governance and policy and sustainable development, they go through iLab, just like Chris has done. And also, there's another question: will the students be allowed to choose or suggest the institution they would like to undertake their practicum, especially as it relates to their background and career interest? This is a very interesting question. Chris, do you have any insight on that, since you have just done that with iLab team?
Sure. Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
So the question is, will students be allowed to choose or suggest the institution they would like to undertake, especially if that, in their practicum, especially that is related to their background or career interest?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's lots of partner organizations that iLab partners with, and every year those partner organizations will give a proposal, and then the students, they also kind of apply and kind of write a proposal back about why they want to work with that organization on that project. So it just depends on the year how many options that they have, but I know that the iLab team does try to pick their global partners and the projects based on the specific kind of needs and requests of that batch of iLab students. And then they'll try to make one project in each sector where they'll have enough students, and it's typically 3, 4, maybe 5 students on each project. And I know for Peace Studies students, there's lots of resources through the Kroc Institute where they help to connect students with field placements and organizations that they hope to work in beyond graduating.
Definitely. Thank you, Chris. So that's very helpful. I also wanted to add that, if you are coming from an organization that is interested in building this kind of long-term partnership with our program, either iLab or Peace Studies, feel free to let professors know after you arrive here, because we would like to also add more global partners to our list of offering. Is there an interview process or selection process just based on the application? That's a great question. I would say that up to this point, we do not have I would say, standardized interview process, but we do conduct interviews during the review process. So for example, sometimes we would like to have some clarification in terms of certain information provided in your application, then we might reach out to you. And sometimes we find that in students' essay or statement, it is not very clear what the student would like to do, especially which concentration student would like to choose, or if a student in the statement noted that they would like to do one concentration, but given our design of different concentrations, we probably think that student would be a better fit for another concentration. We will also reach out to you to conduct an interview via Zoom, just to talk it through with you and see, what is the best way. Because ultimately the goal is to support you, to make sure that you are here, find us it's a good place really to help you to advance your career. Another question, I hope that helps. Can I apply if I do not have a background in economics? Of course you can apply without a background in economics. I don't know, Chris, do you have a background in economics?
Very little.
Yeah. I would say students actually coming from all kinds of backgrounds. Some of them has zero background, but don't worry, you're going to take one class titled Economics of Growth and Development. That's the first semester core required courses for every student in all 3 concentrations, because the purpose of that kind of class is to give you the vocabulary of economics. So you know how to talk about this. As Chris said, when they make recommendations to cities in this country, I believe economic will be one key area. So you need to know how to talk about that, how to communicate with your audience, your different ideas and design. So don't worry, you can apply. And some students, for example, they probably study sociology or anthropology or different works in their undergraduate, and then they went on to work for a few years before they joined the master's program. No worry, you can definitely apply. Okay, here's another question, suggestions on how to write the essay. Okay, Chris, I have to turn this to you. Since you've written the essay, I would say definitely successfully. That's why you're here with us, right? Can you say a few words about that?
Sure. Yeah. So in the personal statement is your opportunity to tell a compelling narrative about, not just your motivations for attending graduate school, but then also what's going to be on the other side of the degree, of why you need the degree to get there, the exact professional training, as well as the job placement that you want. And then also doing some due diligence on why Keough in particular. So it's I know it's hard to tell that whole story and package it in just a couple pages really that you have. But I would say, yeah, try to give it flavor in your voice. And the last piece of advice I would say is, as much as you can, to show that rather than tell that through the narrative. And you also, there's the opportunity to enhance that through your letters of recommendation. Those also are going to add to that narrative, and those recommenders will be able to, speak to things that you may not get to include in your personal statement, but definitely try to make it as comprehensive as possible. I know that's a big ask, and it's a little bit intimidating. But as Iris said, the applications are, they're assessed holistically. So yeah, it's really your chance to say things that might not get picked up through your GPA, or through through your work experience.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you, Chris. And I also wanted to share, I'm actually a old student because I was an international student many years ago, and I also applied to many different graduate programs. So it was a long process because you need to read carefully what those programs are, and you need to ask yourself, that's a conversation you have with yourself. Why this program? What I can gain from this program. And for me, many years ago, I wanted to pursue a PhD degree. So I had a very different orientation, not so much on practicum per se, but really about, intellectual community and, the composition of different professors and their expertise. And I think for you, that also applies for your, the process, but also as Chris mentioned, you need to really use the application as the opportunity to present who you are and why you are great and why we must admit you, and probably why we must admit you and give you a great financial package. So That would be great, right? So I would say that this is a wonderful partnership. We would like to see our students succeed. This is why we are here working so hard every day to build a program to provide the support. Okay, I also see that another question, can we submit the recommendation letters or English test after the December 15th deadline? I would say that for recommendation letters, because it is part of the application package. So I would strongly suggest that you sending your, ask your recommenders, sending the letters on time. Because as I mentioned, once the application closes on December 15th, then we'll start working behind the scenes to put applications we received by that date to different subcommittee members, subcommittee on governance and policy, on sustainable development, and on international peace studies. Some members actually start reading those applications during winter break. They are very dedicated. And so once we return from winter break in early January, we'll have discussion. The discussion, of course, you can imagine the presumption is that everyone has read those applications already. So we need to talk through how to rank them. So my suggestion is, if your materials will be late just for a few days, send an email in as soon as you can, let us know, but you cannot be too late. If you're too late, once we start the review process, then your application is incomplete, then we cannot really consider your application. Also, I think I will take one last question. Here it is the COVID vaccine required for admission? Yes. So all students, all Notre Dame students, be it undergraduate or graduate students, are required to be vaccinated or receive an exemption as a condition of enrollment for the 23-24 academic year. You can find more information about this, I believe, on the Notre Dame website. It is a university-wide policy. It's decided by the university, not the Keough school. All students on campus have to complete this requirement. So I'm very sensitive to the time. Time goes by too fast. Chris, do you have anything to say before we close?
No, not at all. Just, keep working on the applications. Like Iris said, December 15th deadline, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, we apologize. Of course, we did not get to all of your questions, all the great questions, but I wanted to reinforce, just like Chris just said, December 15th, 2022 is the deadline for you to submit your application. And please do so. And if you have any more questions, I would say at least two ways to do it. One is to look at our website, keough.nd.edu. Under academics, you will find pages dedicated to the Master of Global Affairs programs about career support, about curriculum, about practicum, about financial support. Lots of information out there. Please check it out. If you still find you have any questions, don't worry. Send your questions to the email account keough-admissions@nd.edu. That is the email account we have, and send it there. So we'll respond to your questions as soon as possible. Okay, last but certainly not the least, good luck with your application. We look forward to reading your application and hopefully to see you next fall. Take care. Bye-bye.